We're live, Bennett. It's nice to meet you.
Sean, pleasure's mine, bro. Thank you so much for just connecting with me. It sounds like we're going to have a lot in common, at least with some of our experiences growing up. So I'm excited to learn more about you as well.
Well, I'm excited because we're both cancer survivors. We're both
Yeah.
Spider-Man fans. So, did you see the new Spider-Man? I've got to ask. I'm sure you have.
I have. Yes, yes. I saw it. So it came out on Friday. I saw it Thursday night with my girlfriend. Yeah, like a
Okay.
9:30 showing. So we were out till like 1 a.m.
What's your
watching it.
what's your quick review for people who haven't listened? We'll go non-spoiler, just in case
Non-spoiler
some
review.
haven't seen it.
Non-spoiler review. I'm I love any and every Spider-Man media. There's a reason why this character works so well, and anytime they get to put something together for fans, which this project seemed so fan-centered, which is exactly the kind of overlap with our project and Spider-Man Alone. It's just beautiful. It's just beautiful. I had a great time watching it. I thought it was a good movie. I thought there were some interesting risks that they took. And I mean, it's clear people want a street level Spider Man. And then again, that's where we're similar.
There you go. So, for listeners who don't know, although many people have seen your trailers on YouTube and followed on Instagram, could you give a little bit of background to your story and how it relates to Spider-Man?
Yeah, sure, sure. So the short story is this. As a kid, I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. That's a blood cancer. It affects a lot of children all over the world, and I was one of those children who was affected. It really, really wrecked my family. Uh, I was young, but it was so jarring. I'm one of three boys. I was the youngest, so I was kind of the last to come along. And sure enough, did what I do best and threw a wrench in the mix and got everybody freaking out. No, but yeah. So being diagnosed with cancer, I spent about 3.5 years. I like to say four. Um, in chemotherapy, getting treatment. My treatment was centered at Connecticut Children's Medical Center. That's up in Connecticut, where I'm from. And just the most amazing staff there. They took such great care of me. And that's a tricky thing, is what I think you understand probably better than anybody, is you're a kid battling cancer. So it's like the Spider-Man dilemma, right? They ask him in the movie, are you this Spider-Man or are you Peter Parker? And you're both, and you're trying to learn how to be both, and you also don't quite have a way to do it, right? Like being a kid growing up in the hospital is not the same as being a kid on the playground or at elementary, right? Whatever it is, it's not quite the same. And although people bent over backwards to give me the best childhood they can, there's just only so much you can do with something like that. But that's where Spider-Man really came into the mixture as well, in that trying to feel like a normal kid, trying to have hope and, stretch my imagination if I couldn't stretch myself on the monkey bar, so to speak. Spider-Man and the early comics and Sam Raimi's movie to come out in 2002. So having all of those things, just, man, I had a field day. And really that's where my story begins with the character. He helped me uh, not only be a kid, but cope with what is a very, very traumatic thing to go through, and things I'm still navigating today. But he really, really gave me an opportunity to find strength and hope in a pretty weak state and in a pretty hopeless place. And because of that experience growing up, and because I really latched onto him like he was my best friend, I've always loved that character. And in that way, right, when everybody kind of, I'm going through school or high school and everybody's like, you're the Spider-Man guy, right? Just because I talk about Spider-Man, right? They knew I was a fan. They didn't know why, though. That was the reason why, right? So in my mind, I'm like, yeah, we go way back. But that's just kind of our thing, and now I'm 26 and I'm an actor and filmmaker, and I own a production company. And it just made a lot of sense that one of the first ways I feel like I can give back with my gifts, because my business strategy isn't really to make a lot of money. Although if I told somebody that, they would probably freak out. My business strategy is to save hurting people in the way that I was a hurting person and have been saved throughout so many areas of my life, cancer just being one of them, right? But you look at my life, it's happened time and time again. And that's what that character really does best. Why so many people around the world resonate with him is because, you know, he struggles with all the same temptations and flaws that we do, but he aspires to do better. And oftentimes he's able to, even when it causes him such tremendous pain and sacrifice. And it's something worth learning from, and something worth sharing with people all over the world.
How old were you when you were diagnosed?
I was two.
2 years old. Okay, same here. I'm
Yeah.
also 26. We've got a lot in common. Are you
Yeah.
in where do you live now? I see the trees in the background. Is that
Yeah,
California?
I'm on vacation right now. So I
Nice.
don't live in the giant state of Florida, but I am here visiting. Like I said before, I'm from Connecticut. I actually moved down south when I went to college, um, in South Carolina. And once I graduated in 2021, I ended up moving to Atlanta. So right now
Okay.
I'm living in Georgia, pursuing and starting my career in the film industry. And that's also where we're going to be filming the series. So it's a good place.
Man, that's awesome. I really resonated with you, and I think a lot of cancer survivors, especially childhood cancer survivors, has resonated with something that you said, which was highlighted in the latest Spider-Man movie, which is where you sort of sometimes have to decide, am I the cancer version of me going forward, or am I going to put that all past me? And sometimes the answer is that you can be both. I'd love to hear more thoughts on that if you could expand on that idea, because I resonated personally when you said that. I resonated with that movie. I've literally, I'm a man enough to admit it. I didn't shed a full tear, but I got emotional during those scenes at the end of the movie when he, especially when he was fighting the ninjas, and he was like, it felt like he was all coming together. But I'd love to hear your opinions.
Yeah, I think this is going to take me on a little bit more of maybe like a psychological and, dare I say, philosophical tangent, because so many of these things end up being so closely related to the personal, mental, emotional, all of those struggles that we face as human beings. Um, and so, like for when Peter in Spider-Man Brand New Day is talking about, it's not that he's one or the other, but that he's both. It's him stepping into this archetype of what it really just means to be a broken human being who has hope, and who's okay being that in the world. And for myself, my faith is a really big part of my life. And Christ tells us to be a light in the world. A lamp's not hidden; it's meant to be shown. It illuminates the house, light on the hill, all of these things, right? Time and time again, we hear these analogies and we hear these calls to action. But I know in my own life, it's so very difficult to do that within my own willpower.
Hmm.
And what I've noticed in my life, with whether that's trauma from being a childhood cancer survivor, or struggling to find my identity as a teenager, or having my first heartbreak, or being fired from a job, or this and that and this and that, right? The list goes on. And for me, the list really does go on. It's this inner battle of trying to reconcile the parts of you that you hate, the parts of you that have failed yourself and failed others, and the part of you that knows it wants to do better but is struggling so hard to do so. And again, for me, that's where faith has come in, right? Like, the superpower that I have access to is the supernatural God that empowers all of us to live a better life. And when I look at these superhero stories, they're echoes of that very thing. They're echoes of that truth. And for me, it's really important to know what the truth is, and to use that truth intentionally in the work that we do, whether that's the work that you do as a public speaker, working with teams in sports, or whether that's me as a filmmaker and my movies and TV shows that I'm making and producing, or my work on stage. It's who am I pointing towards? Um, and I'd be absolutely stupid to point to myself, because I know how much of a mess up I am, and how much I have trouble, again, reconciling all those things within myself. But there is something greater, right? There is a greater power. And when you have access to that greater power, there is a greater responsibility. And, like Peter and his powers, and Peter and Spider-Man, there's a relationship at the heart of it that he's got to come to terms with. And in that same way, in my own life, right, there was a relationship first within myself, and accepting those really, really disastrous parts of myself or my life that I don't want to accept, right? Like, I don't want to accept the embarrassment that came with not having any hair because I was going through chemotherapy, or the embarrassment that I still feel up until like the past few years, where even if I get a cold, I blame myself because it's my fault that I'm sick, right? It's like all of these things are or like death, right? Like my grandfather died 2 years ago, and it absolutely wrecked me, and I didn't know how to deal with the grief, and I'm still learning now. It's just like I didn't have the tools, made myself feel like I'm wrong for not knowing how to do something. But like, how can you know how to do something when you've never learned it? So that all of those things are a big way of saying, like, what you're describing is really impactful. I also agree. And it's that fight to reconcile all these aspects of our lives, the beauty and the horror, and not separate the two. So much I want to live into the beauty of life, but I don't have any of that if I've not come through the horror of my own life. And in that same way, right? Like, in the greater scheme of things, the reconciliation between man and God. And so again, that's the way that my own lived experience, being a cancer patient, being a survivor, being in recovery, so many things have informed how I want to approach life, and ultimately how much of my full life I need to accept and reconcile the two by bringing them into unity. And when I separate those two, it only ends up disastrous for myself and for everybody around me. And that's something that this movie that you just saw and I saw got to touch on, and something that we get to explore a lot more in depth, I'd say, in something like Spider-Man Alone, which is the series that we're creating. So, uh, yeah.
No, that was all great, and I think that's something that's relatable for people who also don't have cancer. Maybe they've lost someone, maybe they've come back from war, maybe they've lost a job, or maybe they've slipped up and it was their own personal fault. I think that acceptance of self and understanding that, hey, we're all flawed here. The next guy next to me is flawed, next girl, whatever, and we've all got our shortcomings, but accepting that, learning from them, and moving on is sort of what makes us ourselves. And I'm the type of person who overthinks things. Like, I'm in my head too much. I've found that when I just breathe and am myself, that's when I'm most comfortable, and not thinking of all the things that might have happened in the past, or being nervous about the future, and taking risks, something that I've always certainly struggled with, and I think many people struggle with. So when you talk about just coming to terms and embracing yourself, I think that's when you can be one yourself, and just the most confident in everything you do. And that's what happens in Spider-Man, right? He finally embraces himself, and then he goes and kicks butt, right? Like, it's like this
Exactly.
sort of this hard metaphor on accepting yourself. When you accept yourself, you really embrace the fullness of you, and you can be the best version of yourself.
Exactly. Well said. Well said, brother.
Well, you mentioned that in Spider-Man Alone, you sort of touch up on these themes. I'd love to learn, one, about those themes, but two, about what from cancer and in your relationship early on with Spider-Man influenced what Spider-Man alone will be?
Mm, so good. There's this really famous storyline out there called "The Kid Who Collects Comic Books," and like the kid in that, his name is Tim Harrison, and he's got a terminal illness. It could be cancer, it could be any number of things. Uh, and like his one wish before he passes is to meet Spider-Man and to learn his secret identity. And Peter actually shows up as Spider-Man, and it's this whole beautiful comic issue of him struggling to, share again, like what we just talked about, all those parts of himself, the beauty, which is like, the good headlines and the public image of Spider-Man, or the people that actually like Spider-Man, and how that's also somewhat of an exaggeration, and underneath that beauty and the dream of a hero is that horror that we're talking about, is the slipping up in his own origin story, and it costs him his uncle's life, and all of these failures, and onwards and onwards and onwards, and it really builds up into this one great moment where he unmasks, and he shows this kid uh, who he is. And I think that is such an important picture, right? None of us are really Spider-Man. Uh,
Yeah, sorry about that.
okay, so
My camera is just fading out. I'm not sure what's happening.
oh, you're good.
Continue.
You're good, brother. All right, no problem. None of us are really Spider-Man, but working up the courage, or having the safety with another person, with a community, to unmask ourselves, right? To truly be seen by other people is a super heroic feat. Um, and you're right, the connection is that storyline so closely, I think, mirrors my own life. Now, I don't know if it came after, who knows? But yeah, like I was literally like a Tim Harrison in my own origin story as Benett, right? In my experience with cancer as a kid. It's so funny, how even though I was, breathing life into this character by reading the comics, and imagining, being him, right? Like I made sense of it all. Like I could, be Spider-Man, because when he wears a mask, his head is smooth, and I'm bald. So like, of course he could be like me. He could be a cancer patient. Sure, it works out, right? I could do anything to make it make sense. And oftentimes it did. But within all of that is that opportunity and vulnerability and being seen. Um, and I think that helped me feel seen and okay being a cancer kid and not being like everybody else. And how that translates not only to that comic book story that we get, but our series as a whole is, this is a passion project for me. It is a big who am I? And so there are so many aspects of myself that I have to bring to it. And one of them is that kind of Tim Harrison story that, without spoiling anything, I feel like should be sprinkled throughout, because the whole origin of this project is me as a kid in the hospital room with this character for the first time. And so we don't get any of these amazing things that we do get to cover in the series without that also. And I know I'm not alone in that experience. I know that so many people, whether they've had cancer or not, have their landmark moment with this character, for example, where, they felt truly seen, um, whether that's as him or by him. And I feel like there's a responsibility in that to depict that, right? Because that's really what it means to be a fan of this character. To be a fan of this character is not just to be like, want to be a Peter Parker or Spider-Man, but really is to accept that we're all kind of like that Tim Harrison, and we're latching on um, to that safety, to that vulnerability, to that hope. And so I think that we'll see something of that as one of the plot lines throughout that could be a very pivotal moment in what it means to be Spider-Man. Again, this is kind of a celebration of fans, and again, my experiences with cancer, but you just change that factor and it can fit someone else's story perfectly. So with that, there's kind of this universal through line. um, so yeah, I would say for starters, that's just one of the many ways in which that time has really informed how I want to approach this work. We also want to do outside of the series a lot of things for the community, a lot of things for social good. We don't just want to tell stories about what it means to be a hero. We want to actually actively encourage our fans to step out into the real world, to put boots on the ground, and to be heroes. I say this time and time again. Every person I meet, every person I talk to about the project, and I'm going to overemphasize with fans as our audience continues to grow. But none of us can shoot webs or climb up walls, and we don't have to. That's the beauty of it. We don't have to be heroes in the real world. We have communities, we have people in need all around us. There are homeless, there are people struggling with substance abuse, with mental health, and kids like you and I who suffer with cancer. And I know you have a big, big voice in that movement as well, with uh, funding pediatric cancer research. And all of those things are amazing starting points for how we want to bring audiences, not just to theaters or to YouTube in this case, but actually into the community, into each other's homes, and form something stronger. One of our taglines is "Our web is stronger together," and that's not just something that we want to market. That's a promise we want to make and see through with our audience.
That's incredible. I like how you're using Spider-Man and the platform that he is, and intertwining it with your story to connect communities. I think that's absolutely beautiful, and that's what this world needs right now. And there is so much division, right? A character like Spider-Man can bring people together, because who doesn't like Spider-Man? Like, we can at least all agree on that, right? So I think that's really cool. I do have a question, and people watching at home, there are problems happening with the focus of my camera. So apologies. Don't know how to fix it mid interview. We're gonna go blurry the rest of the way. We just gotta embrace it, right? I'm blurry now. So you said that you started your own company coming out, and now you're 26. Was that a risk? What was is the, so this is your dream? Like, I'd love to learn more about that decision and what that looks like for you.
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I too am an overthinker, uh, and I think when that's focused in the way that it is right now, it can yield some really interesting results. So I'm an actor first, for example. I've been an actor since I was young. Theater is also something that was introduced to me very young, around the time of cancer, that again really helped me. That you kind of see now, oh, Spider-Man, theater, you see the merging of those very things active today for me. Um, so acting is always, I went to school acting. I have my degree in acting. I'm an actor, but I also am that overthinker. I also dream a lot. I also use my imagination far too much, and I think that those things, when done well, with hopefully good leadership qualities, can make a good director. And I love writing. My mom's a writer. I've written poetry since I was young, so these things just kind of started to all they always were there, but they started to come to this kind of head. And it was like, okay, well, in addition to acting, I love writing, so let me learn more about screenwriting and have my hand at it. And I have this vision, so although I'm not necessarily a director, I've directed a few things. Like, let me step into that position and learn how to direct and do it. So it's kind of become this multifaceted um version of myself that in doing that, and then realizing what it takes to run a production, to build something up, to build a team. I mean, the team is really the best part of all of this. It became very apparent that um, I think that there's an important perspective to share on our world as a whole right now, and utilizing my lived experience that you and I are talking about, and my community and my faith. All of these things come together. And what it brought me to essentially was a great power, great responsibility thing of, well, if we have this opportunity, then there's a responsibility to tell stories, and not just to tell stories, um, but to bring us all really into that one unified story. And that's kind of what you see me talking about with our impact off camera or off screen with audiences, not just on screen. And it really has birthed this whole production company and this mission to make films that connect people all over the world. That doesn't just stop at the theater, but actually starts at the theater. And there's a lot more with that I could say. So, I guess I never thought as a kid my dream was to have a production company, or to be a whatever multifaceted whatever. I think my dream as a kid was like to be Spider-Man, and then I realized I couldn't really do that in a literal way. But here we are, still kind of living out that dream. But now that dream has wisdom, and with the wisdom, um, and the failings of someone like me struggling for years with isolation and loneliness and depression and so many things. Um, Having come through that, um, having only come through that with the help of other people, it's become so important to me, the value of community, of truth, of bearing each other's burdens, of asking for help. And these are hard life lessons that I've literally had to learn, and to me those are super heroic feats. So again, it's again presenting our pop culture icon that is Spider-Man, that everyone kind of understands and relates to, but really speaking at the raw beauty, horror, and truth underneath that, which is Peter Parker and all his relationships, and essentially really what it means to be human, especially in today's world. So the dream is really now to utilize the production company, the platform, the series to find, the one people like me, the ones that go astray, and bring them home to show them that they're not alone. Hence the name of the series.
What's amazing too is that through art, the director, the writer, the actor, they can all teach these lessons through the medium, through the material. It could be music, it could be poetry. It's in movies. And what I think is cool is how you're taking the hero's journey, you're taking all the lessons that you've learned. And like you said, you might not be able to shoot webs, but if one person watches Spider-Man alone and walks away and says, "You know what? I feel better about myself." Then you'll have done your job, because that's one person's life which is completely formed and transformed, right? So I think
Exactly.
like that's how I view speaking. If I speak to if I'm able to speak to one person and help them, then that's all, like that's all I need, and maybe they'll be able to share what they've learned to me or to other people. And I think that's sort of what makes us all heroes. We all have the ability to be heroes, because we all have the ability to change the world for a positive sense. And I don't know why I said sense. I think I'm thinking of Spider-Man and the Spidey sense. But if you get what I'm saying,
Yeah.
I just think that's super cool that that's the intention behind the because like in Hollywood, I'm not saying every production company is like this. I'm not saying every person out there is like this doing this, but a lot of times it is about, hey, how much money can we squeeze out this thing? Like
Mhm.
right, the intention behind it might not be how many lives can we change. And I think that you can really make beautiful films and beautiful shows by making that intentional.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, I don't blame anybody. Like, I don't blame my doctors for making a living being a doctor. Um, but when they were with me in that hospital bed, when I was getting my spinal tap, when I was hooked up to machines, they weren't thinking, hey, what's my paycheck going to look like next week? They were truly in the dirt with me. They were in the worst of the worst. That they met me there as a person, um, and they fought the fight with me for me to get better. And that's the power of, number one, being a human being in relationship, but number two, art. Right? It all of these mediums, all of these industries, everything I think that we have can all boil down to this effort, essentially, in order to be a better human being. Um, and while, of course, yeah, sure, I want to be able to have a career and feed my family, my art is not about box office success, and my audiences are not numbers. And I feel confident in that because the people that have saved my life time and time again never saw me as a number. They always saw me as a person first. Um, yeah, oof. Yeah,
No,
dude, so good.
that's
They've
powerful.
always saw me as a person first, and it didn't take much. It just took them showing up.
Yeah, dude, that is so powerful. And I genuinely think that when you put the mission not necessarily over the product and that you disregard the product, but if the mission is the why behind
Yeah.
the product and you're truly passionate about it and you're not thinking about all these different things to try and make ends meet or make millions of dollars and buy a new yacht or whatever. Oftentimes I think that it takes care of itself. That's part of my journey. Like my journey as a Christian and as a Catholic has been coming to terms with taking risks in life
Mhm.
and being okay with whatever outcome that is because I know that it's all in God's hands and I can't control it. So I don't
Yeah,
know. I really related to what you had said there, and the fact that and we need more of this. Like we need more people in the world. I believe that are putting the correct intentions behind the actions, and you will see that through the product, in my opinion.
absolutely. And like, what are the two greatest commandments, right? They ask Christ, they say, what are the two greatest commandments? And he says, to love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your strength, right? With everything that you are to love God. And the second, which is as great as the first, is to love others as yourself. And that shows us that, number one, we're designed for community. We're designed not to be individualistic. And I'm only looking out for Benett because who the heck is Sean? It's like, no, actually, if we are created in the image of God and God is community, he's three in one, then actually we're all more like one organism collectively than individuals. And it's so easy to get stuck in that too, especially when art gets commodified and becomes industry and business and all of these things, right? We kind of lose that image that we know we have. We start to lose it out there, and we start to then just kind of survive and take our scraps and let that be enough. But we have a responsibility to one another. And great power comes great responsibility is not something that's necessarily ever said in our series. It's something that's learned, but it's also we breathe new life into it in that same way, where the responsibility that we're talking about in Spider-Man Alone is a responsibility towards others, that we all are responsible for one another, and the great power is that very thing, is the love that is shared when we serve other people, when we serve our community, and even if that's one person, number one, that's one person, that's not yourself. and that's still one person. And you just be amazed with what one person can do, because that person can impact so many people, and it goes on generations to generations to generations. And that is ultimately what it comes down to. Um, so yeah.
So I do have a final question that I ask all of my guests. However, I do want to ask one more question before that. Can you share
Yeah.
how people listening can find you, can find your production company, can watch Spider-Man Alone, when expecting dates of the release, what those all details all look like?
Absolutely. So the production company is called Golden Century Films. That's golden. That's century, like a century, like time wise, not a guard. And films, as in what we make. So that's our socials on every platform. And if you type that in, uh, another quick way to find all this is go into Google. This is not a flex. It's just a cool thing now. Go into Google, type in Spider-Man Alone or something, and hey, stuff will start to pop up. And there's now a lot of videos and links and things out there. Go into YouTube, type in Spider-Man Alone. Some things will pop up, and you can find us there. Definitely follow along. We have a really dedicated audience of friends, honestly, and this community that loves this character, and it's such a diverse community too. And this is something that I wouldn't give myself really too much credit for, because we are building this together as a community. This is very much a fan-led thing. It takes an army, number one, to make anything, to make art in today's world, especially, and to make something like this, which is such a love letter to Spider-Man, but also has a greater social responsibility and mission. It really does take people all around the world, and that's exactly who's responsible for this project. So, although it's called Spider-Man Alone, I am not doing this alone. And yeah, come join the fight. This is all of our thing.
Awesome. So that brings us to the final question. This podcast is called the Cancers Podcast. Now, I know we are both cancer survivors, but this word
Mm.
cancer is the metaphor. It is the difficult things that we go through in life. It doesn't have to be cancer. More importantly, this podcast is for people out there who are listening, who are going through difficulties, and and what they can learn about those difficulties once they get through them, or to get through them. So I'd love to learn about, in your life, whether it's cancer, or making films, or getting through college, or whatever it might be. How have you turned cancers into answers?
Hmm. I love that. I love that. Yeah, I think we've covered some of how that started. Um, Again, from that experience has come this project, production company, friends that I now have, you, all the audience and fans across the world who are able to chip in and able to build this thing up from the ground up. Um, but I think that there's more to be done. I don't know that I would say I have all the answers. I would say cancer really taught me a lot. Um, I think it taught me about the importance of family. I think it taught me about trust. I think it taught me about being okay with being vulnerable. I think it taught me about humility. I think it still teaches me about humility. Um, it's something so funny too, and I see it in you, and I see it in friends that I know that have survived. I see it in people that struggle with other kinds of diseases, whether they're terminal or not, or muscular, skeletal. There is this thing with cancer survivors that is just so inspiring, and I'm not saying this exclude me from this picture. Look at Sean, look at everybody else. Um, there is there's a strength that can only be found in meekness, right? In humility, and that acceptance that we were talking about, right? Of knowing that at like one point, you and I, most fragile people, that we had to depend on everybody else. And I think a lot of times we kind of like paint dependence as a bad thing. But through that comes life. Like, you're never going to have a good relationship, a good friendship, a good marriage, a good family, a good community without depending on one another, without bearing each other's burdens, without being totally vulnerable, and without allowing other people to see you for the broken, messed up dude or woman out there that you are. And for so long, I think I've tried to paint such a pretty little picture, right? And I'm this like really cool guy, and I work out and like I make creative stuff, but like me at my best is really me at my worst. Like, I'm okay accepting how broken and fragile I am now. I think for so long I would like mask that. I'd want everybody to really think I'm this great guy that I'm just not. I mean, I am just this scared little boy who is too prideful to ask for help, and who, through life's greatest blows, has had to stubbornly accept the fact that the strength that I want to have, I can only have in humility. I can only have that when I actually put other people before myself, when I accept that I don't have all the answers and that I need help. And I would say the best version of me is a version that I am now living into today because of those very things. Because I've gotten help. I've leaned on medical staff and therapists and doctors and so many things. Um, and something that I've learned is you'd be surprised at how many people actually just want to see you get well. There are so many people out there that really want you to be okay, to be healthy, to be better. And when you're kind of like isolated like that, like you and I felt when we had cancer, or some teenager is going to feel going through high school and feeling like nobody really gets them, um, in that place is the scariest place, because you really, really do believe that you're alone. Um, right. And when you have cancer, you really only feel like it's only you, and nobody really gets it. Nobody could get it, but also somehow you're responsible for that. At least I did. And you have to do the brave thing of asking for help. Um, you have to do the brave thing for being seen, right? Like, in our faith, the analogy always is like the church as a hospital, right? It's like a healthy person doesn't go to the hospital. You go to the hospital because you're sick. So in this analogy, right, if I don't show up to the hospital in my chemotherapy as the sick kid that I am, as the cancer patient that I am, if I try to pretend I'm okay, um, I'll never get better. I'll never get better. And so, similarly, today, something I'm actively trying to practice in my art, in my relationships, in my friendships, um, is being okay, being seen as that, so that I can get the help that I need. And you're helping me right now, um, by giving me an opportunity to connect with that part of myself that I don't talk about enough, and that I still struggle to accept. Right. Um, and I know you do too. So I want to thank you for you practicing that too, and doing this podcast, especially for cancer survivors like me, um, to accept all of what we've been through and use that to make a better day today for other people.
Man, that was extremely well said. I connected on so many points, and I know the people out there listening, whether they've gone through cancer, whether whatever it is that they're going through, that I think that they're gonna walk away from hearing you being inspired to be themselves and taking all the flaws with it, right? You just got to be yourself, and it sort of ties literally all back to what we started with from the Spider-Man movie. So I can't think of a better way to close it off. But dude, thank you so much for carving out time of your vacation, almost an hour worth of that vacation. I appreciate you wanting to help others and inspiring others to be heroes in their own lives.
Sean, thank you for having me, for doing that very work already. You're inspiring me. I need to catch up to what you're doing and what you got going on. And yeah, let's continue to talk after this too, so I can support you and we can support the work that you're doing. Thank you so much, man. Thank you, truly.
Well, everybody listening out there, be sure to earn the moment in everything you do. Stay present, and thank you for listening.